Open the jar in your kitchen. Read the label. Sugar, palm oil, cocoa from West Africa, hazelnuts from Turkey. 4 continents for one sweet spread. But there is a wild bean growing in ditches across 30 states with the same flavor. It costs nothing. And by the end of this video, you will know which tree grows it, where to find it, and how to turn its pods into a spread that never runs out. Hi, I am Harry, and this is Garden Explained with Harry. The company that makes the most popular chocolate spread on Earth generates $15 billion a year. One product alone accounts for roughly $3.5 billion. Pick up the jar and look at what is actually inside. 60% of it is sugar. Most of the rest is palm oil. The cocoa content is small. The hazelnut content is smaller. The marketing shows dripping chocolate and roasted nuts. The reality is sweetened vegetable fat in a glass jar with a beautiful label. Follow each ingredient backward and watch what it costs the world. The cocoa comes from plantations in Ghana and Ivory Coast. 2 countries produce more than 60% of the global supply. Investigators have documented children as young as 5 working those fields. The cocoa trade is worth over $130 billion a year. It depends on tropical monoculture and labor that much of the world tries not to think about. The palm oil comes next. 70 million acres of tropical forest have been cleared to grow oil palms. That is an area larger than the entire United Kingdom. Orangutan populations have collapsed. Peatland fires in Southeast Asia release more carbon than some entire nations, all for a cheap fat that makes processed food smooth and spreadable. The hazelnuts come from Turkey. One country controls 70% of the global hazelnut supply. A single late frost in the Turkish hills sends commodity prices surging. In 2014, a frost event destroyed a significant portion of the crop, and hazelnut prices doubled overnight. One weather event, one country, the entire supply chain trembled. 4 ingredients, 4 supply chains stretching across 4 continents. Industrial extraction at every stage. Refining, shipping, processing, packaging. Billions of dollars in infrastructure to produce a spread you put on bread in the morning. This is the system. And it runs because most people believe there is no alternative. That a sweet spread with a chocolate flavor requires tropical commodities, factory processing, and global logistics. That is not true. It was never true. And almost 100 years ago, someone proved it. In 1929, a man named J. Russell Smith published a book. He was a professor of economic geography at Columbia University. He had spent decades studying how civilizations feed themselves and how agriculture destroys the land it depends on. The book was called Tree Crops, a Permanent Agriculture. It should have changed everything. Smith's argument was simple and devastating. Annual crops like wheat and corn require plowing. Plowing destroys topsoil. Topsoil takes centuries to build and 1 generation to lose. Every year, American farmers planted their fields. They were mining the soil and calling it farming. Smith watched hillsides erode across Appalachia. He watched dust blow off the Great Plains. He saw the future of industrial agriculture, and it was collapse. His alternative was trees. Permanent crops that hold the soil, build fertility, and produce food for decades without replanting. He documented dozens of species. But one tree received particular attention, a North American native that grew wild from Pennsylvania to Texas. A tree whose long, twisted pods contained a pulp so sweet that early settlers compared it to honey. Sugar content measured between 29 and 39% of dry weight, higher than most fruits, higher than sugar beets before processing. a natural sweetener hanging from branches along every back road in the eastern half of the continent. Indigenous peoples across the eastern woodlands had known about this for centuries before Smith ever picked up a pen. Cherokee communities ate the sweet pulp directly from the pods. Delaware people fermented it into sweet beverages. The pods were gathered in autumn and stored through winter. This was not foraging. This was food infrastructure. The tree produced reliably, year after year, without planting, without irrigation, without any human intervention at all. Smith calculated yields. A single mature specimen could drop 200 to 400 pounds of pods in a season. An orchard could produce more calories per acre than a wheat field. And unlike a wheat field, the trees would improve the soil instead of stripping it. The roots would hold the hillsides. The canopy would shelter livestock. The pods would fall every autumn for 100 years. The book reached the United States Department of Agriculture. They read it. They responded. They developed improved varieties of this exact tree. But what they improved was not the food value. They bred out the thorns. They shaped the canopy. They created a clean, ornamental version and planted it on boulevards and in parking lots from coast to coast. The food value was never promoted. Extension bulletins sent to homeowners never mentioned that the pods were edible. An entire generation of Americans grew up in the shade of a tree that could feed them and never knew. By the mid-20th century, the landscape shifted. Cheap industrial sugar and later subsidized corn syrup flooded the market. Corn received billions in federal subsidies. A wild tree that makes free sugar cannot compete with a subsidized industry that makes cheap sugar. The economics killed what the science had proven. The tree Smith wrote about is honey locust. Its scientific name is Gleditsia triacanthos. It is not the black locust, which contains toxic compounds in parts of the plant. It is not the carob tree, which grows in the Mediterranean. It is not the mesquite, which grows in the American Southwest. Honey locust is its own species, native to Central and Eastern North America, and it has been hiding in plain sight for your entire life. You have seen this tree. If you live anywhere between the Atlantic coast and Kansas, you have driven past it hundreds of times. The wild form is unmistakable. Massive branching thorns cover the trunk and lower limbs. Some of these thorn clusters are a foot long. They look like medieval weapons growing out of the bark. This armor evolved millions of years ago to protect the pods from being eaten before they were ripe. The animals those thorns were meant to deter were mastodons and giant ground sloths. The megafauna went extinct. The thorns remain. The tree is still waiting for animals that disappeared 12,000 years ago. The ornamental version planted in cities and suburbs is the thornless cultivar. Same species, same pods, same sweet pulp, no thorns. Your city probably planted dozens of them along the streets in your neighborhood. In autumn, those trees drop thousands of long, flat, twisted pods that turn dark brown as they ripen. Most people assume the pods are litter. Maintenance crews rake them up by the truckload and send them to the landfill. Homeowners curse them for cluttering the lawn. Break one open. Inside, you will find hard seeds surrounded by a sticky, sweet pulp. Put the pulp on your tongue. It tastes like a cross between carob and chocolate with notes of honey and molasses. That flavor is not subtle. It is not something you have to imagine. It hits immediately. 30 to 39% sugar by dry weight, produced by a tree that nobody planted and nobody waters, sitting on a street that you drive down every week. The seeds are worth attention too. They contain 12 to 14% protein and a thick gum called galactomannan. This gum is chemically similar to the ingredient listed on thousands of commercial food products as locust bean gum. But here is the confusion that has helped keep honey locust invisible. Commercial locust bean gum does not come from honey locust. It comes from the carob tree. The name was borrowed, the plant was left behind. The question is, why? Why did the USDA develop the thornless honey locust and promote it as a parking lot tree instead of a food tree? Why did J. Russell Smith's book fade into obscurity within a generation? Why do city maintenance crews throw away hundreds of pounds of free sweet pods every autumn and never once mention that they are edible? The answer is not conspiracy. The answer is economics. And once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. The corn industry receives billions of dollars in annual federal subsidies. High fructose corn syrup dominates the American sweetener market. Every fast food restaurant, every packaged snack, every soft drink depends on cheap corn sugar. This market exists because tax dollars make it artificially inexpensive. A wild tree that produces free sugar on public land threatens this entire structure. Not by competing directly, but by proving it is unnecessary. The seed industry depends on annual purchases. Corn, soy, wheat, cotton. Farmers buy new seed every single year. The global seed market generates over $60 billion annually. Honey locust does not participate in this economy. Plant it once and it produces for a century. It also self-seeds aggressively. Pods that fall to the ground sprout new trees without human help. The crop expands on its own. No annual purchase, no repeat revenue, no shareholder value. The chocolate spread industry requires controlled commodities. Cocoa must be imported from the tropics. Palm oil must be extracted and refined in industrial facilities. Hazelnuts must be sourced from a narrow geographic region. Every ingredient flows through a supply chain that generates profit at every link. A sweet spread made from pods that fell off a city tree generates profit for no one. No factory is needed. No patent is possible. No import license required. Nobody conspired to suppress honey locust. No meeting was held. No memo was written. The mechanism is simpler than conspiracy and more effective. Neglect. A food source that generates no profit generates no marketing budget. No marketing budget means no public awareness. No public awareness means no consumer demand. No demand means no research funding. The cycle feeds itself. 3 generations of Americans grew up without knowing the trees on their street produced food. Not because anyone hid it, because no one could monetize telling them. The pattern repeats across the food system. White clover was included in almost every American lawn seed mix for decades because it fertilized the grass naturally. But when selective broadleaf weed killers like 2,4-D were commercialized after World War II, they killed clover right alongside dandelions. Rather than reformulating the chemical, marketing campaigns simply reclassified clover as a weed. Then they sold fertilizer to replace what the clover had been providing at no cost. 3 products to replace 1 free plant. That is not agriculture. That is a business model. Honey locust faced no such active campaign. It was simply ignored. And while it was ignored, it kept growing. Along fence rows in Missouri, in drainage ditches outside Indianapolis, on median strips in Philadelphia, in abandoned lots in Louisville. The tree does not require attention. It does not require permission. It produces pods whether anyone picks them up or not. You can start using them this autumn. Here is how. Find a honey locust tree. If you live in USDA zones 3 through 8, which covers most of the continental United States, there is almost certainly one within a short drive. Check city parks. Check street medians. Check roadsides and fence rows. Look for the long, twisted brown pods on the ground beneath a spreading canopy. If you see thorns on the trunk, you have found the wild form. If the trunk is smooth, you have found the ornamental cultivar. Both produce the same edible pods. Collect the pods after they have turned dark brown and fallen from the tree. This is when the sugar content peaks. Green pods are unripe and bitter. Brown pods are sweet and ready. A single tree can drop enough pods in one season to supply a household for the entire year. Bring the pods home and break them open. Remove the hard seeds and set them aside. Dry the remaining pod material in a dehydrator in an oven on low heat, or simply in the sun. Once fully dry, grind the pods in a blender or grain mill. The resulting flour is naturally sweet with that chocolate and honey flavor. Use it in baking. Stir it into oatmeal. Add it to smoothies. To make the spread, combine the ground pod flour with a fat. Coconut oil works, olive oil works, even butter works. Blend until smooth. The consistency and flavor will land somewhere between Nutella and natural almond butter with a deep molasses sweetness. Add roasted hazelnuts or pecans if you want the full chocolate spread experience. No refined sugar, no palm oil, no cocoa sourced from a plantation run by children. Just pods from a tree on your street and 10 minutes with a blender. Save the seeds. Roasted, they make a passable coffee substitute. Soaked and simmered, they release a thick gum that works as a natural thickener for soups and sauces. Nothing in this tree goes to waste. If you want your own supply permanently, plant a thornless honey locust in your yard. The tree tolerates poor soil, drought, urban pollution, and road salt. While it belongs to the legume family, unlike most legumes, honey locust does not form root nodules or fix its own nitrogen. However, its leaf litter decays rapidly, returning vital organic matter and nutrients to topsoil every single autumn. Within 5 to 7 years, it begins producing pods. Within 10, it produces heavily. A single tree will outlive you and feed your grandchildren. $15 billion a year. Burned rainforests. Child labor in cocoa fields. A hazelnut supply chain held hostage by one country's weather. Global shipping networks burning fuel across 3 oceans. All for a jar of sweetened palm oil with a picture of a chocolate swirl on the label. And every October, in cities across 30 states, maintenance crews fire up their leaf blowers and push thousands of pounds of honey locust pods into black plastic bags. They haul them to the landfill. They do this every single year. The trees do not stop producing. The crews do not stop throwing the pods away. And the jar on your kitchen table does not get any cheaper.